famine, mass executions, and attacks so brutal the images of blood can be seen from space. The civil war in Sudan now capturing the attention of the entire world. The UN says RFS forces opposing the government have committed atrocities in Darfur, in one case killing 460 patients and staff members at a maternity hospital, and then going house to house murdering families. Incredible. The international Christian relief group World Vision is on the ground helping the victims of that ongoing war in Sudan. And Edgar Sandoval is president and CEO of World Vision and joins us now. Edgar, thank you so much for being on the program. The situation in Sudan, horrifying is an understatement, with reports of atrocities, famine, and 14 million people displaced. What can you tell us about the situation and what's led to these horrific events?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak about this terrible situation, the largest humanitarian crisis in the world today. And I appreciate the opportunity to bring awareness to this crisis. I was at the border of Sudan with Chad about a year ago or so, and what I saw was unimaginable already. And the situation, well, continues to worsen. We've had women and children fleeing atrocities, violence from Sudan to Chad, and they get to Chad, and there's barely any good possibility to survive in Chad because there's no water, there's no food, there's no shelter. So a situation that was already dire is getting even worse. And as you mentioned, just last week, 400 civilians killed in a maternity hospital. The world just can't ignore this. And organizations like World Vision, through the amazing generosity of our donors, we're on the ground, we're responding, we're helping with clean water, with emergency food and health. But it's a challenging situation. 300 million people in Sudan in need of humanitarian aid. We're calling on world leaders to push for a peace deal and for humanitarian access so that we can do the work that God has called us to do and reach more of the most vulnerable people inside Sudan and in the bordering countries as well.
And Edgar, obviously, basic necessities of life, food, water, shelter. How can you elaborate a little on how World Vision is responding to these people that are crossing the border and trying to escape these horrific atrocities?
Yes, first of all, I just want to ask for prayers for our staff. Our staff put themselves in very dangerous situations to serve the most vulnerable. And they are doing that inside Sudan, and they're doing it as well in Chad. One of the things that is important to remember is that World Vision is the largest non-governmental provider of clean water in the world. So we have developed over 75 years an expertise to bring clean water to people in need, and that's exactly what's needed right now in places like Chad. We also have a strong track record of helping food insecurity people make a recovery. In fact, 89% of severely malnourished children that are treated by World Vision make a full recovery. And right now, we're doing that. We're doing that in Chad and in other places. As you know, the food insecurity situation in Sudan has now reached what is called the most extreme level, with a lot of lives at stake. And so those are some of the things that we're doing in Sudan and Chad and in many of the other most challenging places to be a child.
And Edgar, World Vision also responding to the massive hurricane that just hit Jamaica. You're actually working in partnership with CBN's Operation Blessing. Tell us how you're helping the hurricane victims there in Jamaica.
We're so grateful for Operation Blessing and for our partnership with Operation Blessing and also with our other partners. We are indeed responding on the ground in Jamaica, in Haiti, in the Dominican Republic. In Jamaica, I was just in a call with our on-the-ground response team, and what they're reporting to me is a devastation, an unimaginable devastation. And what's particularly challenging is that the part of the island that got the most severely hit was the mountainous area. And so there's been a huge need to get helicopters to deliver generators and clean water units. But we're responding with emergency supplies, with tarps, with shelter. There's a massive effort going on in Jamaica, and we appreciate particularly our church partners. We're working with the Jamaica Baptist Union. That's a network of 300 churches as well, to make sure that we identify the most vulnerable and we can get them the help that they need.
Yeah, I really think the prayers that were going out from Jamaica helped this hurricane not be as bad as it could have been, but it was still, like you say, very, very bad. Well, World Vision has announced a new program to reach 300 million people by 2030. Briefly describe the goals of this program. That's a big goal.
It is a big goal. It's actually our most ambitious goal in our 75-year history. But the Lord has blessed World Vision for 75 years. He's given us the ability to shine the light of Christ in the most difficult places around the world. In fact, we work in 40 of the 60 most fragile countries around the world. And right now, the needs are, well, increasing. Even before some of the recent crises that we're talking about today, there were over 306 million people in need of humanitarian aid around the world, 126 displaced. And this is before Hurricane Melissa. And so we believe that this is the time. This is the time of the church, the big church, both the local church and the global body of Christ, to step up to the challenge and put our faith in action. And one of the ways that we're doing that at World Vision is through our Everyone Needs a Believer campaign. I think we can all remember people in our lives who lend us a hand. And so we're calling on the church, on all people of goodwill and all people of faith, particularly Christians here in the U.S., to help us reach 300 million people with hope, life, and a future. And what that means is clean water. It means livelihoods. It means child protection, Christian discipleship, and all the things that these vulnerable, precious children made in the image of God need to have life in all its fullness. And so I'm inviting everyone to please check us out at worldvision.org and join this movement. This is a movement of God to help the most vulnerable during the probably one of the most challenging times in the history of the world.
Yeah, I like what you said. This is the time of the church. And speaking of needing help, you guys are training pastors to multiply the impact of local churches. Tell us about this.
Yeah, what a great question. Let me start by saying that at World Vision, we think the church is our indispensable partner. In fact, our very first partner 75 years ago was a church, Yongnak Church in Seoul, Korea, during the Korean War. And today, 75 years later, we are working with 50,000 pastors and church leaders every year. And that's because we believe that when the church is strong, communities get stronger. And that's because churches, pastors, church leaders, well, they help us identify the most vulnerable. They mobilize volunteers. They train parents on how to live biblical principles. And that sets the foundation for us to do our work in partnership with the communities. And so that accelerates the impact of any of our programs, clean water, livelihoods, health. We believe poverty is not just material, it's also spiritual. And that's why with the church is so critical for us.
Edgar Sandoval of World Vision, God bless you and all that you guys are doing. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.